If you can walk the walk, don't talk the talk. If you can walk the walk, don't talk the talk. If you can walk the walk, don't
Hello,
talk
everybody.
the talk.
Welcome to W.B.G.C. This is episode 11. We have our usual groups today. We've got myself, Bacon and Grits. We have Deuce Juice TV, Grumpy, and we have a special guest with us, Crooks the Great, a big-time YouTube content creator for boxing games all around. And we'd like to essentially share and have him on the show. So, Crooks, do us the honor and just tell us about yourself.
Yo, what's going on? It's a pleasure to be here. I've been watching you guys' show for quite a long time, trying to get on here. I appreciate you guys having me. Um, Obviously, I've been making a lot of undisputed content since the game is launched. I've been playing combat sports ever since I was a little kid. So I started off Fight Night Round 3 when I was young. I'd have to sneak. Funny story. I'd have to sneak that game around because my mom was like, "Nah, this fighting stuff, you're gonna try to go out and replicate it. You end up getting hurt, and I don't want that." But yeah, I would always sneak around, play Fight Night Round 3, and then from there, my love of combat sports really just evolved. I got really heavy into MMA. That's really where I started my content on YouTube from. It's from the UFC franchise. I was been one of the best players in the world. UFC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, top 100, won tournaments, UFC tournaments as well. And then I transitioned over into Undisputed once I realized that they were making a boxing game. I jumped on it. I've been heavy on it. I've been trying to bring people as much information as I can, keeping people up with the updates, giving people gameplay tips, as well as just creating a good overall environment for anybody that loves boxing to come in and really have a good time. So, yeah, it's been really, really enjoyable. I'm not gonna lie to you.
All right, that's good to hear. Do you have like a schedule in terms of when people can view you whenever you do stream?
I go live pretty much every day except for Sundays and Tuesday nights because I work Tuesdays.
Mhm.
So I go Sundays and Tuesdays are generally my days off. Sunday I take off for my family, and then every other day I'm on grinding.
Very nice. That's good to hear. But so we need as many awesome players to be playing this game as much as possible. Get the word out there, let everybody know. Glad to have you be a part of the community. So thank you very much for sharing with us. That leads me to introduce what we'll be talking about today. We just got some pretty good news about two hires who seem like to be a pretty big deal for Undisputed, who go by the name of Tim Coop and Clive Moody for the product development. It seems like they've got some pretty big credentials, and I think one of them was EA. Worked for EA for a long time. I think it was Coop who did that. So that leads to my question. What do you guys think about the two VIPs they hired for Undisputed? Do you think they will be able to get the game in the right spot? Uh, Deuce, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, I think with these two new hires, it will put the game in a very good spot, but it won't be a overnight thing. We live in this social media era when we see something we want it instantly. So I think people are under the assumption, oh, we got this guy from EA. We got new people in on the team, so we're going to see a change next patch. No, that's not the case. But I do feel like they're headed in the right direction. They're making the right moves. I do know that Coop, he was behind a few games over at EA. I don't know if he was behind any Fight Nights in particular, but I know he was behind some of the 007 games, the Dirt series, the FC series and things. So he's very well versed on how to make a good video game. So yeah, I do think that's a good move on their behalf.
Indeed. I was going to say, for the most part, like you said, it's going to take some time. Just because they're in the building doesn't mean the game is fixed just like that. You got to give them some time to cook and things like that. But I have faith that these guys will help the game get in the right direction. Crooks, what do you think about it?
I'm excited for it. I mean, to bring on somebody like a Tim Coop that has experience making games, as we all know, Steel City is a newer developer company. This is their first game that they've made. So to get somebody that has that long list of experience, even if it might be making other games, that's super important, especially coming over from, a AAA gaming company like EA. That's such a massive powerhouse where, they got their hand in everything from, obviously from sports games to making different genres of games too. So I feel like Tim Coop coming over is really going to make a massive difference in the later stages of the game and even into Undisputed 2. But Clive Moody coming along too. He's primarily been an advisor in more of an advisor role. But even then, obviously bringing anybody in that has experience in the gaming realm of making games, whether it be an advisor or in the head developer spot, is a win-win, honestly, for everybody in the community. So I'm excited for it.
100%. I was about to say, considering that their team, I think this was their first time at making a game, I think, for Undisputed as a whole.
Yep.
Trust me, as much experience as you can get, there's going to be a lot of mistakes made along the road, but the more people you get to really help, the better, I'd say. Grumpy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's important to note. I mean, these are pretty prestigious positions that they've hired for. Tim Coop as the vice president of studio and Clyde Moody as the vice president of product development. There's a nice note from Ash on there that I'm sure will be added after the recording, but it's basically from Ash, and it's just basically saying him how he really believes these two hires are going to help him come from a small indie studio and grow into a great big AAA company. And that really warms my heart because that's what we've all been waiting on, that big jump from indie company to AAA title company.
I agree. It's been a long time since we've had like a proper boxing game. And this is very well, I would say, the first of its kind to kind of be, I'd say, a hybrid where it's on PC. I don't really know a lot of combat sports that were actually put on PC,
Hmm.
and it's on console. So I know eventually they plan on doing crossplay, which would be incredible for this game. I don't think any of the other games, combat-wise, have done this yet. So that's definitely something to look forward to. I do agree there. Speaking of Undisputed, that will lead me to our next question, which is the competitive state. This is quite a topic. We've all played the game. We all know some good players out there, but we also know that the online can make things not as good for everyone as they could be in terms of matches. So I guess the question I have for you guys is, do you think the game is in a state to where it is ready to be esports slash competitive ready?
Who wants to handle it first?
I'll go,
Uh,
man.
so
I no, it's all good. I mean, I think in person is pretty close to being there because that eliminates most of the desync issues. The online, as far as our league goes, it's if you get good connections, if you fight with the right people, you can get some good competitive matches. But as far as overall as a large player base goes, online, nah, they definitely, whether it's going to be an engine swap or whatever they need to do to get rid of the desync, I don't think it's going to be competitive online until they do that.
I agree. The desync, I think, is probably the toughest thing about the game, and it really makes or breaks how a fight would go. Like, you could be doing everything you're supposed to be doing. You could be setting your opponent up for counters, waiting for them to throw something, but then it's all of a sudden your punches just hit air or just vanish out of nowhere.
nice.
And they all of a sudden get the counter, and next thing you know, you're the one in danger. It's like, what happened? So, no, I definitely understand that. I think offline is probably the best we're gonna get. I do feel back when it was an early access, I don't know if anyone's ever had a chance to really play offline or even on Parsec, but especially for those of you who did play it in early access offline, you had all the access to the clinch, the push, the headbutts, the low blows. It all worked. It all
Yep.
felt good. Like everything you could use, you saw. Everything you were throwing, both of you could see, which was great. I think if they can find their way back to that, especially for like the current state, I think the game would be fantastic for offline tourneys and things like that, for even like little tournaments, locals and things like that. Like much like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter do, they could do locals, which would be great. Good way to get them out there. Anyone else have anything to comment regarding that topic? Crooks?
So
Moose?
it would just be well, you guys are talking about the online aspect in the esports, right?
Mhm.
Um, My personal opinion, like when you break it down to sports games and esports and things like the 2Ks, the Maddens and all of that, people pick their specific teams because they have certain players that they favorite and all that. So if this boxing game is go if it's going to shift into the esports era, I don't think it's fair for a player to be betting their skills on a copy and paste fighter. I think they should go in and reskin these fighters so they can play true to self. So whenever it does go into esports, it would be a more true to life experience.
Yeah, that is a good point. A lot of the fighters, for the most part, something that the EA really had was a lot of fighters, for the most part, did have some uniqueness to them. And when the game was fully released, it feels like some of that uniqueness was taken away. Especially when you describe, the hooks, like the body hooks.
Hmm.
It feels like everyone's just pretty much got the same animation. Some characters had different ones, and especially when you switch them to Southpaw, their animations would change altogether. There was something really unique about those fighters, and I think they just kind of need to take a step back. And I agree. The more different the fighters are, the more it increases different outcomes, if that makes
Exactly.
sense.
Yep.
Um, I found it, especially when the fighters are, carbon copies of what they are. I feel like it's probably something they're just doing as a placeholder. And then maybe as they are able to get further in with development, perhaps they will go over and then really
Revisit
fine
it.
tune some of the fighters that really need it. Like, for example, Joe Cal. When he first came out, he had some pretty cool movement, especially in loose. But then I think at some point towards like full release, his loose movement then became regular like everyone else. So I guess they're just trying to play around, I guess, and see what works. But I have faith that they'll go back and revisit that. That would
That,
definitely
that,
help.
yeah, that'll help a whole lot. A
Yeah.
whole lot.
Does anyone else have any
Crooks, what
comments?
about you, bro?
Um, I personally think, just kind of piggybacking off what Grumpy said a little bit. I think online wise, esports wise, just with the servers that they have right now, with it being peer to peer, it's going to be kind of tough. Just because boxing is not like, if you get a game like Madden that's primarily based in the U.S., it's viewership and its community is primarily based in one area. Where boxing, it's worldwide. You get boxers from everywhere, from all different walks of life.
Mhm.
So when once the esports organization hits, everybody is going to want to try to show themselves, and rightfully so. But with the connections being the way that they are, I don't think online is just it is really just a feasible way to really have an esports right now. Offline, I feel like the game does play very, very well. It's very smooth. Everything works the way that it's supposed to work. If you try to set up a counter shot or you slip or evade a strike, it works the way that it's supposed to. The counters actually do damage. The I feel like the movement is a lot more fluid, and different things like that. I feel like the key to the success of having offline tournaments is going to be all on how they go about doing it, right? Because
Mhm.
like I remember coming over from the UFC franchise, they had a tournament back in UFC 2 where they only allowed you to use, I think, four fighters specifically, and their stats were all equal. So it wasn't like, hey, like I'm using this person and he has this advantage, and I'm using this person and he had this advantage. All stats were basically like equaled out, and it was just pure skill going off of, basically how you used your fighter is who was going to win. So I'd be really interested to see how they would set that up, as well as, the funding that would go into it. I know obviously, there's only so much money that can really be pumped into it because of the studio that's making the game. I'd be really interested to see who would back it and how much would really go into that. I feel like would really, really set the bar as to the amount of success that they would have. But the player base, skill wise, for Undisputed, there are really, really good players out there. I've touched base with a lot of them. I've gotten beaten up by a lot of them. There's a lot of really, really good players out there that are really looking forward to this game, whether it's Undisputed right now, Undisputed 2, or further on, there being an esports organization or an esports aspect to it. I know they're kind of chomping at the bit. So I'm hoping that as we go along, they're able to make these servers a little bit stronger. So maybe, we don't just have to do offline local LAN tournaments, and we can actually get something going online for the whole community.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree there. Especially, I liked when you mentioned how there was a thing where they would use the fighters that pretty much had the same stats. That's actually something I've been thinking about for a bit, where maybe they could introduce a mode where every fighter essentially has the same stats aside from, their reach and their height and things. You can't change that. But it would make it to where people could, use their favorite fighter and showcase them and like really make a name. Because we all have a fighter or two that we really appreciate and we want to do well with them and show that, hey, we're big fans. So that would be really cool for them to do if they ever get around to that, which I think they might. Um, which, speaking of that, that does bring me to another good topic. The game, if you guys have noticed, has been getting updates kind of frequently compared to what we're used to. And it kind of begs the question, now that they got some new people in there, it sounds like they are trying to give us as much as they can and try to help the community continue to enjoy the game. So, with that being said, what do you guys think the next update will look like? When do you think we'll get? What do you think we'll get? Or rather, what would you like to see in the next like major update, whenever that will be?
Um, Obviously, more tweaks to the desync and stuff like that. But I would like for them to revisit the whole multi-fighter queue thing. And if they can't do that, at least open it up to where fighters can fight at least up or down a weight class to open up the player pool a little more.
That's a good point. Yeah, ever since they did do that, the queue times have kind of taken a dip. I do remember when it was an EA, initially they had like, I think everything was open for the most
Hmm.
part. But then they discovered that, I guess since people, I guess, might not have noticed or been playing it a lot at the time, they felt that they had to kind of cut back on the queues. So when they did that, there was more people getting matches. But in doing so, that means a lot of fighters aren't getting used. So
Hmm.
the method you mentioned would definitely help a lot with that. I do agree. Um, Another thing that would be really cool for the next update to have, maybe it's just the simpler things, but having fighters have a bit more, I don't know, like customization, between their gear, their taunts, things like that. It might
Yes.
seem a little trivial, but having that customization really helps, especially in a game like this, I would say.
No, I would love
It
to have Bud in some roster gear. I would
Yeah.
love.
Yeah, it's fun. It definitely makes you appreciate the fighters more, and you can also, just try out other people to see what they have, because there are some people who are low rated that have some sick gear, but nobody uses them and things. So
Hmm.
more incentives to play other characters. I know that when they introduced ranked, there was a thing where if you played a lower fighter and you happened to beat a higher rated fighter, you would get more SP for that. And I think that's still a thing. So if they were to find ways to incentivize playing other characters, because I'm pretty sure you guys have played online enough to know you pretty much see the same cast.
Yeah,
And you see Sugar Ray Robs, your Leonards, your Furies, your Wilders. It's, well, because they're good.
same.
I mean, why would you use anybody else if those guys pretty much have all the tools you need? But then that
So
defeats the other purpose of the fighters.
that triggers a thought, and it goes back to But I'm gonna let you finish your thought first before because I'm gonna kind of sew it all up.
Oh no, you're good. I'm pretty much just gonna wrap that up with pretty much just, you have all these fighters in the game, try them out. Just see what they're about. I mean, there's a lot of fighters that I personally now follow in the scene because I played them. I looked up their record and I was like, huh, I don't really know much about this guy, but I played as him. It actually increased my want to know more about who's in the scene. And now there's actually a good few fighters that I follow. Like, Dalton Smith is doing really well right now. I think he's got a big fight probably coming his way. I've always been a big fan of Caleb Plant and things like that too. And it's just playing other fighters, I think, will also get you in the know-how about what's going on in the scene for other people, and you discover more people that could be in the game in the future. But go
Okay.
ahead, Deuce. You had your thoughts.
So with having like more fighters being used in the name of adding more gear and all of that, and with them having someone from EA on board with the team, Do you guys think there is any chance that Steel City could go in the microtransaction room?
Oh.
I, I could say something, but I'm gonna let you. Who wants to go first on that? I have a yes and no about that, but who wants to go
Grumpy, you go ahead and take that one. I can go all day on that one.
first?
No comment, brother.
No comment. Okay. Um, I guess a prime example, for those of you who might be who are playing Call of Duty, it's microtransaction central over there. It's a good way to get people to engage, play the game more with the skins and the weapons and things like that. With something like that in Undisputed, I feel like you would really have to plan it out. A lot of games are doing this whole battle pass where if you pay a certain amount, you could get this X amount of rewards, and if you pay like a premium, there's like extra, like the really cool ones that you could get. If they do it right, if it ever comes into question, I think a battle pass of some kind would be kind of cool to have, or better yet, you know how they have prize fight mode?
Hmm.
There are things in the game I feel like they could play off that would allow them to make those things unlockable. And for those who don't feel like doing the grind, they could then add the option of getting it for maybe a low price if that's a thing they want to do. But I generally know that microtransactions are frowned upon, especially depending on the pricing and depending on what's being offered. I don't know how you guys feel,
Are y'all dropping
but
10 bucks
Yeah.
on a pair of new shorts for Jake Paul or nah?
Well, and one thing that's really being worked on in terms of just the combat sports realm, obviously we have boxing and we have MMA. So with Tim Coop coming over from EA Sports, what EA Sports has done just with UFC 5, this is a newer thing that they've done, right? Which is where they're adding in alternate versions of fighters from certain pay-per-view events. So basically, I think that could be a route in which Undisputed might go as well. I know obviously everybody's kind of following the formula that Fortnite has set, because Fortnite really was the
Hmm.
first game to really break onto this microtransaction scene. I mean, EA Sports had like Ultimate Team and Madden and stuff like that, so they set the bar. But Fortnite kind of really is in terms of like skins and stuff like that.
mhm.
So UFC in general has, like I said, introduced those alter egos. So where you select the fighter, and then once you select the fighter on the from the selection screen, it gives you the choice to use either the standard base version of them or the version of them from this certain pay per view, and the stats kind of go based off of which fighter you want to use. So that's something that Undisputed could be looking to do as well. I mean, you could maybe get you could use a base Canelo that is on the game right now, or you could use the Canelo that fought against Triple G, or you could use the Loma that was styling on one of his fights, or
Hmm.
as far as it goes back beyond that. So that's something that maybe I could see them diving into in terms of microtransactions that would make sense and not cause the community to kind of just have this
Mhm.
uproar. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to see if they're looking to copy that model.
I definitely have been talking about that kind of thing for a bit, but how you described it with the alter egos is pretty much perfect. It's just there are so many things they could do. Like for instance, that could be the free content, while they could introduce like some of the bigger names that are not in the game yet. That way
Yeah,
people are, not only able to pay for some good stuff, but they're also able to get other fighters for free as well. It promotes more content, more incentive to, enjoy the game. So I
yeah.
definitely would love to see that. I think they should, to be honest. I don't know if they will, but if their advisor, and like you said, the guy works from EA, if that's what they've done there, I think it would work for this game perfectly.
Touche.
Grumpy, do you have anything to add?
I, to be honest with you, the microtransactions kill me. I know
Hmm.
it's the way of the world, but I feel what they're doing with the amount of venues and boxers, especially, that they could sit here and continue to pump out $20 DLCs probably 6 a year, and they drain my bank account. I buy every one of them, but the game keeps continuing this direction. So I don't see you know what I mean? I don't see the point in the microtransactions. Now, as far as in correlation to how UFC is doing it, where I'm pretty sure the UFC fighters, they sign some type of agreement with Dana White type of thing, as like Ash had spoken out about, you have to deal with every single one of these athletes individually, and that is one hell of a process.
Yeah, like being able to reach them, like actually, get into agreements with them and things like that is probably a tough task. I think they definitely had mentioned that before. And that kind of brings up a topic where there's some boxers who, from my understanding, I guess they might be too busy training other people to realize that this game is out.
Hmm.
And it's just there are some boxers that would really love to be in this game. You might not have to do much to get them in here. Just the idea of them being in the game at all just excites them. There's a few people that I spoke to, as a fan that like, hey, have you ever been reached out by the team, or does anyone from this company or this game ever reached out to you? They're like, I've never even heard of this boxing game. What? And so I guess if there were more ways to spread like the idea of this game being out there to the boxers, I feel like that would alleviate some of that issue as well. But again, getting into all the agreements and possibly signing things too, that could probably get obnoxious because you gotta, bring them out there and take care of all that. It's an in-depth, but I think there's to be in there, and they wouldn't really might not even cost a dime, which is good for them. Um, but no, I definitely agree with that. Um, Another thing for the update, others you guys would want. I know that I'm sure they've got some. I'm sure you guys saw the YouTube video they posted with their new facility in Vegas. Some cool people that they definitely got doing mocap for the game. So maybe whoever was in that video is maybe the next fighters we're gonna get.
I'm trying to
But
figure out why Floyd Mayweather Sr. was there.
Uh, I think he was. I think
was
from
he
what
on
I
the
heard,
list?
he is being mocap to be brought in as a trainer in career mode. From what I've heard,
Oh,
Huh.
him and Uncle Roger, I think, were gonna be trainers that were available in career mode, kind of like in an expansion. I think.
Okay.
that would be cool. Yeah, because I know eventually they want to do more with career and things like that. They haven't really gone in depth, but I think they do want to do more with it. I think someone was telling me, I haven't really played the fight nights, but from what I was told about the fight nights, they had mini games where you could actually, hit the mitts, do the speed bags, and things like that. And career mode doesn't quite have that yet.
Hmm.
So I guess at some point that would also be really cool to see. It really will kind of give that mode more life. I know that they're trying to do things one step at a time to get career mode to a good place, but it's going to take some time. But there's a lot that they can play around with that I guess they're just going to need some more. I think they just need more time to work on it. Trying to think. There was one other thing aside from the fighters.
Do you think we'll ever get the low blows and things back in the next set of online patches?
Like, it's been offline, but they just have yet to put it online. And then there is the clinch. I do know they took that out because
Yeah.
they didn't really like how it looked and apparently it was causing some issues. So that would kind of help against people who like to stay in on your face and there's not much to get them off you. You've got the push. But then if they time that, if they know you're going to push them and they have a big hand ready for you, that might be a rock.
Mm.
So more ways to essentially play and, handle certain type of styles would be nice. I hope they do. I just don't know when.
The clinch,
Which
the
go ahead, go ahead.
clinch, they got to bring it back, man. I know you played on Parsec Bacon, and hey, other than a few wonky animations in league play anyway, it was a beautiful thing. I mean, not
Hmm.
just, if somebody's rushing you, but to help with runners, get them anywhere near the corner, anywhere near the ropes, grab onto them, clinch, and on the break, you light them up, man. And
Right.
personally, I didn't see any issues with it other than a few crazy looking animations. But if you're going to take something out based on that, you might as well not even have put the freaking game out.
Right. It is something that is needed, and that's another thing, the whole Flash KO thing. While it stinks for you to be on the receiving end of a straight flash, I wonder if they will bring that in. I think they did say it was temporary that they
Yeah,
took it out.
Hmm.
yeah, they
So,
actually did say they actually one of the devs in the Discord was talking about that. They
mhm.
said that they took it out because of the randomness at which they were occurring. Because sometimes you'd get flash blocking and you'd get flash knocked out. It didn't make any sense, so it was kind of infuriating the community a
Yeah.
lot, like as you said. But what they said that they were going to do is they took it out of the game and they were going to be working on it to make it more reward based. So if you caught an opponent on a load up of a heavy strike like that, or you timed it out perfectly, you were going to get more rewarded for landing a heavy shot with that flash KO instead of it being so random in the game as it was before they took it out.
Oh, my mic was on. Sorry, it was on mute for a second. Okay. No, to agree with that point, yeah, it was very RNG, and there was really no conditions. So I think if they make, I think we talked about this, I think in the last episode, if there was a way to make conditions to how to achieve it, so it doesn't feel like it's completely random, I think that would be a good way to go for that. Um, Backtracking to, I think there was a question. Oh yeah, fighters, that's right. While I think I have an idea of who the next fighters will be based on the YouTube video, are there a couple fighters you guys would really want to see in this game that you think probably would make like headlines like, oh snap, this guy's in this game. Definitely got to start playing it.
We need a Spinks pack. We need
Ooh,
Corey, Michael, and Leon.
sheesh.
That's a big pack
We need them
indeed.
all.
Yeah.
That's heavy. That's heavy. Hey, I've been hearing a lot too from people. We need some Puerto Rican fighters in the game.
Yeah.
Where's Trinidad
Hmm.
at, bro? Where you know what I'm saying? Let's
Yeah.
get some of those. But also, a lot of people have been asking for Shakur Stevenson as well.
Hmm.
He's a massive fighter that could be one of the headlining pack fighters to go along with with the Kronk gym being confirmed for the game, I think a lot of people have been thinking Tommy Hearns is going to be in the game.
Yep.
So maybe a Tommy Hearns and Shakur Stevenson pack, headlining pack, I think would really, really get the community going. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So hopefully we can get those two people in the game here soon.
Yeah.
And on that point of new fighters and things like that, it's funny you mentioned about people not knowing about this game existing. When I was organizing family fights too, one of my good friends, Devin Alexander, he's a boxer. He was going to come on and do commentary, and he had no idea what this boxing game was.
Prime example right there. They're not in the loop. So if they find the way into the community, if we can get in contact with them, it will probably be super surprising. And they're
Yeah.
probably going to want to be like, hey, is there a way for me to, talk with them, be in the game?
Hell,
Sure.
Corey Spink, his first time seeing it was on Family Fights 1. He said all he played was Fight Night. So
Mm.
we got to get the awareness out to the legends.
Even Gervonta Davis as well. He said that he was never asked to be an undisputed either. So, and
Yeah.
he's one of the biggest guys that's out there right now. So for him not to be asked about it was kind of surprising to hear, but it's kind of crazy. But it just shows you not everybody not everybody knows that that undisputed is even a game. You
Yeah.
know.
Hmm.
So the more people we can get out there. Go ahead, Grumpy.
I think it's also interesting to note that, Ash had said before that he had signed, I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 360 individual contracts with specific entities. And, as far as new boxers, I'm just curious as to who they've already signed that is going to be in the game and who they still have to sign because they really haven't told us much about that.
Right. Like, there are some people, because I think they initially had a huge list on their website about people who they've already had. I don't know if anything has changed since then, but I do know that we've been seeing some faces that were kind of not on the list initially. Jake Paul being a prime example. It makes you wonder who else they've been kind of working to get behind the scenes that we might not know about, which I guess will bring me to this little topic. I don't know how y'all feel about this, but there's been some. I guess there's been some talks about how some folks think there's too many old heads, like, the olden day boxers that we all like and appreciate, versus the ones that are really modern and the YouTube fighters that you probably know about as well. So, my question to you guys is, do you think the YouTube fighters should have a chance to be in this game for the sake of the modern generation that know about boxing right now? A even balance between the two, or do you think they should have like their own unique thing they should do, not in this game?
Their own unique thing. I think Jake Paul, Logan Paul, KSI, what's his name? Pepper Bay or whatever is um
Yeah,
all of those Salt Poppy, I forget his name, but all those guys should be somewhere separated. I think whenever they brought Jake Paul, a YouTube influencer, into Undisputed, that sent people through a frenzy because it's like if y'all go bring him, but can't bring this OG or bring this new uppercomer, like what are we doing here?
right. Crooks, any thoughts?
um, I mean, I think there should be a balance. I think a balance would a balanced approach to it would be probably the way to go about it. So that way you can really appease both player, like both, pretty much both sides of the coin. You know,
Yeah,
certain people that want to see YouTube boxers, like, I feel like a lot of people more were so up in arms about Jake Paul because of the lack of, we don't have any of the big name fighters still in the game right now.
right.
So we got a Jake Paul in the game before we got a Shakur Stevenson. We got a Jake
Hmm.
Paul in the game before we got, the Klitschko brothers, before we got Tommy Hearns in the game, before we got Marvin Hagler, Roberto Duran, any of those old fighters that, if you've been a boxing fan for quite a long time, you grew up watching these guys,
Hmm.
and the newer generation is growing up on, watching the influencer boxing, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, KSI, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're bringing eyes and attention to the sport of boxing, which we all love. But
Right.
um, I feel like a balanced, maybe having an influencer or a YouTube influencer fight in a pack is not a bad thing, not a bad way to go. Um, but I feel like for a large portion of the community base, they want to see fighters that they grew up watching and guys that they actually seen fighting, that actually were like champions and exciting fighters over YouTube influencers. But the YouTube influencer thing, honestly, I like it. Obviously, like I said, it's bringing attention to the sport, and it's never gonna, it's gonna only enhance more things. But I do see a large portion of the community saying, we just want actual boxers to be in the game. And there's no reason why we should be getting these influencer boxers in the game before we get the legends of the sport being added into the game. So
Right.
hopefully they can create a nice little balance on that.
I think they missed the opportunity on creating that balance with the Jake Paul pack with not including Mike Tyson. You
Whew.
put two
Oh,
characters in
yeah.
there that beat him, but you didn't put him in there.
Yeah, that is a good point. Considering that
Regent.
they had that little Netflix thing pretty recent, and I think there was even an interview kind of a little bit before that started, and I think Jake even alluded to the fact that he might have some involvement in the game without actually saying it, but we could all pretty much figure, oh, he might be in this game. That's crazy to think about. Grumpy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to put it out there that I think, when ESBC was first envisioned by Ash, Ash is a fellow old head. So that may be why along the lines we got some of those greats, you know what I mean? And then, through the development is really when we started getting to see these influencer boxing matches and stuff like that. You didn't have any of that really back in 2000 when the game development began. And on another note, I got a gut feeling that sometime when these DLC characters come out, I think it's going to be some fighters, some active fighters, and I think it's probably going to be something to do with one of these fights coming up here in the next month or two because we do have some pretty big fights.
That is a good point. I think there was somebody in the studio when they were showcasing the YouTube. I think I'm trying to remember his name. I think he was like Johnny Magic. I think he's Bantam. Maybe Crooks might know who I'm talking about. Is Johnny I can't say his last name. It's like Mansour. I don't know if you've heard or seen him, but I saw him doing motion capture. I was like, wait, that guy's been kind of on the up and coming recently. So that's kind of cool that they're also getting like prospect really good right now. Like how we have Adam Hamed in the game. I know some people really want Nassim in the game already. That would be cool to see. I think, like Crook said before, having a balance, I think, will appease the fans, both modern and old heads alike. And then on the lines of them maybe doing like free content or free boxers, maybe they could even do something with that, where if a YouTube boxer wants to be in the game, they could maybe be like a free boxer to come with a pack if you do get a pack, or just like a little free update, like they brought back Garcia to come back as a free update. They could do things like that. I think that would be really cool to see them do that. Um, Other
There
than
is
that,
one boxer I want to see, and I know it'll probably never happen, but Dimitri Farog. If they put Dimitri Farog in this game, I'm sold forever with Steel City. He has
okay,
the best movement ever from a boxer, dog. Like it's unreal. We need
definitely have
him.
to look him up. I think the first name's familiar, but I definitely have to look him up. I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to look him up. Um, Trying to think of any fighters. I think you guys have pretty much touched the nail on any fighters I might have wanted to mention. No, I can't think of anybody else.
Mm.
Uh,
Do you think they'll do any adjustments to the AI on the commentary and in the corner, like when you're winning and then they tell you you're having to turbo around?
I'd like to say they probably are doing that, especially with the inclusion of certain fighters having fought IRL and having them have special commentary. I think I can't remember what update it was. I think maybe 3 or 4 updates ago. I think is when they added some more lines for certain people. So I feel like they're probably going to be doing that over the course of time.
Okay.
But yeah, there are still times where they might repeat the same thing once or twice as the round's going on. So I think that's
Yeah.
probably still a work
But
in progress.
I can't listen to the words. I have to look and see who's bowing their head in the corner, who's keeping their head up to know who's winning.
Yeah.
Oh my God, look at that liver shot. Man, A in the face.
It is funny at times though. Um, Anything else you guys want to add regarding anything you want to see for the next update coming out?
um, from what I heard
Mhm.
after the last big patch that happened, which was obviously the time before this hot fix update that we just got,
Yeah.
they were talking about in the Discord, one of the devs was talking about play testing a build where they slowed down loose footwork and kind of just slowed down the speed of the game in general. Um, that's an interesting thing that I'm really curious to see if they implement that.
Hmm.
Because you guys know you trying to be an inside fighter in this game is incredibly hard to do. I mean,
Yes.
one of the most underutilized, least utilized fighters, and Joe Frazier's a heavyweight that I mean, whether you're new, you're old, everybody knows about Joe Frazier. But he is virtually almost impossible to use because of the fact that it's very, very to corner your opponents, to be able to head them off, to ring cut, as people would say in real life, to be able to cut off the ring and force your opponent to engage with you in a range that's beneficial to yourself. And I know that they were saying that they were going to look to play test that. So I'm interested to see if they do something to the movement speed in general, or they're also talking about maybe adding a stamina tax to people that stay in loose footwork all fight long.
Mm.
You know, after a course of time, you start to lose more stamina than an opponent that's not in there. So that's something that I'm really interested to see if they're actually going to try to implement, or if it's just kind of something that it's kind of just kind of gonna go by the wayside a little bit.
That'd be dope. Do you think foot stamina or leg stamina should be a thing too?
um,
Like
yeah,
separated from punch stamina?
yeah. I mean, maybe not. That's an interesting thing, right? That's a really interesting thing to think about because it could be a system that they can implement. I don't think obviously that's going to be beneficial to this Undisputed. That's something
Yeah.
that's probably going to have to be an Undisputed 2 thing. But I mean, more of I think people are having issues with the footwork speed in general than the stamina that it affects. Like if you fight a Deontay Wilder, you throw him in loose footwork, is moving like he's 67 Ali. And that's I don't I mean, if you look at Deontay Wilder in real life, his footwork is not one of his specialties. You know, it's really not. So that's where I think more of the community is having the issue more than it's the stamina wise. But leg health and stuff like that, yeah. I mean, it's something that they could look
Yeah.
into for Undisputed too.
Yeah, like tying that in, like you said, with the loose movement, especially because when you're in loose movement, you're constantly exerting energy, which will definitely have an effect on your stamina. So that would be really cool to see them implement that.
Yeah, because in
Um,
real life, if you just spent, let's just say, 9 minutes, 3 rounds in real life, just walking around in circles, your legs are gonna feel that.
yeah, you will wear yourself out, especially if you might be getting hit every once in a while too.
Mm-hmm.
That does add wear and tear,
Yep.
the more it happens. Grumpy, anything you want to add?
Uh, just one thing I did want to add, something DDA had wanted me to mention that Sean is supposed to be meeting with Ash sometime here, either in June or July. So that will be cool. We'll definitely be getting an update as far as what's going on with that. And I am going to push Sean personally this time to try and get our hosts or at least a couple of our members in on that episode of Talk the Walk so we can actually, you know, press Ash for some real questions because obviously he can get some softball ones from time to time, but he seems to really be coming out of his shell lately and, all the switch ups at SCI and what's going on now, I think he's in a much better place to take some of that heat and criticism.
I agree. I mentioned it, I think, in the last episode that a lot of us we want the game to succeed. This is, like you said, this is the first boxing game that has essentially, caught everyone's attention in a long time. The fact that it's, on PC and on console is a pretty big deal, and the fact that crossplay is eventually going to be a thing is pretty crazy to think about because, UFC hasn't done that yet. So them being on board before that is good. So I pretty much would like to be part of that. And I'm sure you guys would love to ask Ash questions. I mean, we're not going to bite his head off and things like that. We
In
want
the
him to
event that
succeed.
that becomes a thing, just let me know where I need to go in Vegas. I will be there.
100%. We all want him to succeed. That's the whole point of these, podcasts. We talk about the game. We want everyone to enjoy, we want the community to enjoy this game because we're all big boxing fans. So with that note, I think that pretty much wraps it up for today's episode. I think we got some pretty good information and some pretty good things out there for everyone to take a look at. I hope that the next update will be something good for all of us to like, and I hope the next set of fighters will be really, really cool. So until then, this is Bacon and Grits is your host for the show today. Thank you, Grumpy. Thank you, Deuce. And thank you very much, Crooks, for being a part of the show as our special guest. We will love to have you again sometime. And yeah, thank you very much for being here.